All right. We said we might be back if there was breaking news, and we are back just a couple hours later after coffee and football right here on Texas Football. I'm Blake Monroe, joined by Bobby Burton and CJ Vogel. And guys, good news this time. So that's obviously a plus, and kind of expected news as quarterback Quinn Ewers announces that he is coming back to Texas. What's y'all's initial reaction?
Well, my initial reaction is let's let the word speak for itself. Let's let Quinn Ewers tell people exactly what went into his decision. If you've got that video ready, Blake, let's let him use his own words here.
Longhorn Nation. Ever since I was a kid, I've dreamed of playing quarterback at the University of Texas. I couldn't be more thankful to all my teammates and coaches, and I'm beyond grateful to be in the position that I'm in. God has shown me who I truly am these past 2 years that I've been here. And through the ups and downs, these fans and this university has always had my back. And with that being said, I'm coming back. Hook 'em.
There we go. Panini was part of the sponsorship of that announcement. So we have a new kind of NIL situation going on. Quinn Ewers breaking new ground in this announcement to come back. Panini, part of that announcement. Congrats to Quinn Ewers, but also CJ, congrats to the Texas Longhorns.
Yeah, massive news for Quinn Ewers to come back for Texas. Entering the SEC with a 3-year starting quarterback, you're obviously returning 4 out of 5 offensive linemen as well. 2 of the running backs that were really leading that room towards the end of the year as well. A lot to like in that Texas backfield behind that offensive line. Right now, it's all about who Quinn Ewers is going to be throwing the football to. But as we talked about, this was the year where the wide receivers and pieces around Quinn really elevated his performance. In year 3, it will be Quinn Ewers leading the charge, elevating the performance of those around him. Big time news as Texas heads into the SEC, the conference where having a good quarterback can really make a difference for your entire team.
All right, guys, the other thing that we need to talk about real quick is, we talked about odds this morning, and they have been changing, to say the least. And I am going to put the new ones up here. Good news, because earlier, remember, Stark went way up to plus 800. He eventually dropped down to plus 900, and now 1,400, while Mike Norvell and DeBoer have both shot way up the board. Kiffin's still kind of hanging in there, though. Bobby, you're muted.
Dan Lanning surprises me. He's come out and said no in an official statement, yet they still have him at minus 150. Mike Norvell is the big mover here. The Florida State coach clearly going up I think he's very attainable, I think is the best way to put it, right, guys? Yep. Kalen DeBoer attainable as well. Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian going down, though matters. And you have to think that maybe Quinn Ewers coming back has a little insight here. And so let's be clear about that. But the fact is nobody has a better quarterback situation right now than University of Texas and Steve Sarkisian. With Quinn Ewers coming back for a 3rd year of starting, with Arch Manning waiting in the wings, and with Trey Owens also in the pipeline, as well as KJ Lacey. I tell you what, Sark, he may want to move or do whatever he wants to do, but there is nobody that has a quarterback room in better shape right now than Steve Sarkisian, and part of that is getting Quinn Ewers to return like he did just now.
Hey, Bobby, and I'm going to let you answer this now that the cat's out of the bag. Leandrew25 says, what took him so long to announce?
Well, I told y'all that there were some things that were taking time. This Panini production took time, guys. It didn't happen overnight. I mean, there has to be a camera crew and all this other stuff that has to go on, right? And so that's part of what happened and part of the process for him and what took so long. But it was always known behind the scenes that he was coming back. That's why I kept saying 98% or 99%, that kind of thing. And so that's the best that we could do at this time is tell you that kind of news But yes, obviously right now, this is big stuff for the University of Texas, for Quinn Ewers, and that's why it took so long. I'm happy he did it this way. Good stuff for him. I'm very, very excited because this gives Texas its first 3-year starting quarterback since Sam Ehlinger, clearly. But before then, Texas didn't have a 3-year starting quarterback for 8 years. So just remember this. This is a long-term piece for Texas and a long-term play for the University of Texas. And Quinn Ewers gets to keep doing what he was, in my opinion, destined to be. I mean, he grew up wanting to be the University of Texas quarterback. He's fulfilling that dream. And so I'm very happy for him, his family, etc.
For sure. All right. We got a question here from Auto Pro. He says, what do y'all think? Is Sark going to stay at Texas or go to Bama? I think you can read into the odds timed with Quinn's announcement, but that's my opinion. What about y'all?
That's certainly how it's trending from Vegas, in the sense that it won't be Steve Sarkisian that is joining the Alabama staff as the head coach. So that is nice. It certainly helps that he has a 3rd-year quarterback coming back to Austin as well. So whether or not you want to parlay the two of those odds and kind of come together with odds of your own on whether or not Sarkisian is staying or going or not. But right now, I like the idea that Steve Sarkisian will be sticking in Austin. And I think Vegas is backing that up with the way that you're starting to see some of the odds around Mike Norvell and Kalen DeBoer start heading south.
I'm interested to see where they go. All of these guys were up by Jimmy Sexton, by the way. And though for those unfamiliar with his name, he is the super agent, the Ari. What was the guy's name in the show on HBO? Ari Fleischman, was that it? I can't remember. The super agent that was on the show on HBO. This is a situation where he is the guy that kind of controls and puppets. He's the marionette pulling all the strings, basically. He'll be involved in the Alabama. He was Nick Saban's agent. He's Steve Sarkisian agent. As of last year, he's Kalen DeBoer's agent. He's Lane Kiffin's agent. There's like 100 of them, it seems like. Every major college, except for a couple, like Jim Harbaugh has a guy named Don Yee, but he's one of the very few. Most of these major college coaches have went with Jimmy Sexton because he's able and capable of driving a hard bargain with universities and representing his coaches to the best of his ability. But we won't know until the final bell is tolled, I think, on this. But Sark certainly a guy that is well thought of, and I think that Texas needs to take that in the right way. I mean, how many times did people come looking for Charlie Strong or Tom Herman? I mean, how many times did those two guys get in the college football playoff? These are good problems to have in some ways. They're unfortunate ones in that you don't want to lose him, but it is what it is. You'd rather be in a college football playoff than not. And so we've got to follow this as it goes. I want to focus a little bit on Quinn and his maturity this year, CJ. He went, what did he go from 58 or 59% last year up to 69 to 70% completion rate this year. In conference, I think he even went up to 72% completion ratio. What did you see from his development this year that you thought was good, and what do you expect to see from him next year?
Yeah, I certainly think that was an improvement in its game. We talked about the deep ball and kind of the issues that surrounded that aspect. I thought there were times where he looked really good throwing the ball deep. I thought the intermediate to short game is obviously where he made a lot of his money. For me, one of the biggest progressions and step ups that we saw from Quinn Ewers is when and where to take shots on the field, when to force a ball down the field to one of your top tier NFL caliber wide receivers or tight ends, or when is it time to check down and really start just taking what the defense is giving you. And at times, I think Texas fans thought that he was just checking down a little bit too much, but that's a sign of a good quarterback, taking what your guys can get and not putting the ball in harm's way, which he only turned the ball over 6 times, the same amount of turnovers he had, or interceptions he had a year ago, yet on 100 more passes this year. That's the sign of a growth and improvement at the quarterback position. Next up, it's going to be time for Quinn Ewers this upcoming year to really put pieces together in terms of pocket awareness, continuing to take the deep shot, and reading through all your progressions all the way through, which he had done a good job of. At times, I thought he had gone from, read one to check down, whereas, there were times where he was read one to read two to check down. So consistency in that regard will be high on display in year 3. I'm expecting some really impressive numbers in 2024 with year 3 of Quinn Ewers in the same system.
I want to see the use of a fastball from him and better red zone production, and that's from him and Sark combined, because I think they tie into one another, right? Sark didn't really use him in that capacity this year. I think he wanted to keep the ball out of harm's way as much as possible. That's something that Sark and Quinn can work on together next year.
Guys, we have a super chat from Justin Yarbrough. It says, any update on the D-line coaching search? And Bobby and CJ, who would be the guy y'all go after if it was your choice?
At D-line, I love Ed Orgeron. And I think he was one of the best recruiters. If he's available and wants to go back to being a D-line coach in the twilight of his career for a guy that he's known for a long time, and Steve Sarkisian, I would give him the keys. I mean, he's one of a kind as a recruiter now. Much better than Bo Davis. I'm nothing against Bo Davis at all, right? But much better recruiter, just as good a developer, if not better. Has had more guys go into the league at high levels than Bo. Tremendous. Ryan Nielsen of the Atlanta Falcons would be another one. He is now looking for a job. He and Sark know each other from his time at USC. He once recruited 6 NFL defensive linemen at NC State over a 3-year period. But how many times has NC State done that in their career? Then you look at guys that I think that are interesting. Frank Oakham, Rod Wright. Those guys are interesting to me. Freddie Roach at Alabama, who Sark worked with last year or 3 years ago, is interesting to me. Then you also you have to look at other guys, possibility Randall Joyner at Ole Miss, and there are a number of others that you could perhaps look at. But right now, I don't know of a guy that's absolutely done for Texas at this point or anything of the sort. I'm sure Sark has some ideas at this point.
CJ, do you have a pick?
At the moment, no. I just hope that whoever the defensive line coach has ties to the Southeast. We've seen that be a very important, fertile ground in recruiting for the trenches, especially on the defensive side of the ball. That has to be somewhere where Bo Davis was really, really good in creating inroads to Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida even. We've talked about Texas and its ties out west to California as well. I feel like that's been taken care of. You've got to have a guy that can step into the SEC country now that you're in the conference and go toe-to-toe with some of these big dogs in that region. So that's almost a prerequisite for me. You talk about Coach Orgeron, Bobby. That makes a lot of sense. What he was able to do at LSU, obviously the recruiting ties that he already has to that region, that makes a lot of sense to me.
LSU, Miami, Ole Miss, USC. I mean, he's been around the block, and I'm telling you now, he's a great recruiter. Is he going to take a step down? People are asking about the Michigan defensive line coach, Mike Elston. He's been a lifetime Midwesterner, guys. I mean, he's been at Eastern Michigan, Cincinnati, places like that. I just don't see that happening unless, of course, Jim Harbaugh decides to go off the NFL. Then all bets are off there.
Okay, guys, this next question here, it's actually a comment from Emanuel Roberts. Says ESPN First Take with Paul Feinbaum said Alabama wanted to name a coach by the end of the week. But actually, Greg Byrne, the athletic director of Alabama, has told those, in the program, from what I understand, to expect a decision within 72 hours of Saban stepping down. So we're almost at that 24-hour mark. Should know something in the next 48 hours.
Absolutely. I think that, hey, by the way, bring that tweet up that you just sent us, Blake, would you, if you don't mind. Texas football putting out a tweet here about Quinn Ewers' return. I think that's classy. We need to replay his tweet. By the way, we've had 300 or 400 people join us, and since we started this, but my opinion is that you look at it overall, and you just got to find the right guys. That's all there is to it. Find the right guy, get him going. A team typically isn't going to win championships because of a single positional coach. I'll just put it that way. It is a team effort, whether that's recruiting, whether that's coaching, whether that's offense, defense, etc.
All right, I got that for you, Bobby. Let me switch my screens here. Sorry, I was bringing that video up too, getting it ready again. And here you go. There we go. Let me try to resize that a little bit.
That's the Texas tweet they just put out a few minutes ago. We're going to play the Quinn Ewers announcement video as well here in a second, which I think is really strong. We talk about all this. Here's the video. Let's go. Let's listen to it again.
Longhorn Nation. Ever since I was a kid, I've dreamed of playing quarterback at the University of Texas. I couldn't be more thankful to all my teammates and coaches, and I'm beyond grateful to be in the position that I'm in. God has shown me who I truly am these past 2 years that I've been here. And through the ups and downs, these fans and this university has always had my back. And with that being said, I'm coming back.
I got to ask you this, Blake. You're a baseball card guy. I can see it in the background there. You've got all these baseball cards. Is that going to be for sale, you think, on Panini somewhere? With that,
they'll probably put it in some packs. We also have this question from Ski Break that says, "Does that signed card sell for more than Arch?" No, I have like one of the rarest Quinn autograph cards there is, and it's nowhere even in the same stratosphere as that Arch card as it is. But no, I bet it'll be probably released. They'll do something, my guess, and closer to fall. I doubt you'll see that card out before then. They may in the spring. They may for spring football, but I think it'll be a few months before you actually see that summer, fall, somewhere in there.
There's a good question, Blake.
Yeah, Justin Rote says, you think Arch is going to sit 2 years and be okay?
CJ, you've heard the same thing I have. You go with it.
Yeah. He committed to the University of Texas to play for Steve Sarkisian. As long as Steve Sarkisian is here, that is where Arch Manning will be. It's all about the development, progression of his play style as a quarterback while being able to play at Texas, which is ultimately what won over the Mannings over the likes of Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia. Everybody wanted Arch Manning for a reason, but there is a reason why he ended up ultimately committing to play for the University of Texas, and that is to play under and learn from Steve Sarkisian. So as long as Steve Sarkisian is here, this is where I believe Arch Manning will be. So whether or not it takes a year to get on the field more or not, again, I don't think it will make much of a difference in the terms of where he will be for the 2024 season. So that's it. That should, ultimately quiet things down, but there will always be the question, and it's one of those things that, if you have 2 5-star number 1 overall quarterbacks, the question is going to be asked.
Going back to Bama for a second, Chris Bacon says, is there anyone on the current staff they may elevate to take the head coaching job there? Bobby, you're shaking your head no, because we also had a question about Charlie Strong, obviously, and an analyst there. I definitely don't see that.
No, and here's the other piece of it. Kevin Steele would have been a natural potentially as the defensive coordinator. A week ago, he retired. And so that would have been natural. Tommy Rees only been there for a year, the offensive coordinator. I don't see that happening, although I do think he's ready for a head coaching job, but more like at Cincinnati or, Purdue or something like that, not at an Alabama. So there's that piece of it. And then they've got some guys that have had some history on the staff. Holman Wiggins, I think, was the longest tenured guy on the staff, but he's now at Texas A&M. I don't see Freddie Roach, their defensive line coach at Alabama, being in that category, although I do think Roach could be a possibility at Texas. So we'll see how that all rolls out. I don't see anybody on staff currently that they would necessarily circle. Interesting name that hasn't come up is Mario Cristobal. And I know that he's at Miami. but he was under Nick for 3 years in Tuscaloosa. He might be a name that if Norvell passes, if Sark, Kiffin, and some of those guys take a pass or they don't want, I wouldn't be surprised if Mario Cristobal's name doesn't get thrown around here too.
I don't think they're very happy with Cristobal in Miami right now.
They're not. But, he has won a conference championship, I believe, at Oregon. I think he's got Miami going in the right direction, at least from a talent perspective. You can say what you want about their on-field performance, but if they can get a quarterback down there, they're going to get enough players.
Yep. All right, Jordan Baker, any new portal news?
No, not as of today. I mentioned, or not as of this afternoon. I mentioned this morning that Texas still expects to bring in 2 guys this weekend: Silas Bolden, the wide receiver out of Oregon State, and Kendrick Blackshear, the linebacker out of Alabama. To my knowledge, there have been no new Alabama players going into the portal at this time, though. So they have 30 days to announce going into the portal. None have gone in that they've released publicly yet. That being said, as it relates to the 2 guys coming in for Texas, Bolden is not a mid-year guy for Texas at this point. He won't be here until the summertime anyways. So there's not this big rush. Okay. The 2 other guys that have come in, Jamari Caldwell, as well, the defensive lineman from Houston, as well as CJ Daniels, the wide receiver from Liberty. Both of those guys are still in flux. I do think that Bo Davis leaving Texas hurt the Longhorns with Jamari Caldwell. I don't think there's any question that has put a wrench in things. As far as CJ Daniels, I think we could be looking at an answer here in the next 48 to 72 hours, if not sooner.
And then we touched on this morning. Any chance we're getting Ryan Williams to commit to Texas and Auto Pro? Does Texas have an even better shot getting Ryan Williams?
Well, it's absolutely a better shot than what it was. He was committed to Alabama to play for Nick Saban and that program under Nick Saban. Obviously, Saban's retirement has changed things just a little bit for Ryan Williams. He reopened his recruitment yesterday as well. There's a new visit to Texas A&M that is scheduled for this weekend. That is the result of Holman Wiggins, his wide receivers coach at Alabama, now being hired by Mike Elko and College Station. So a little bit interesting there. I don't think it's anything yet to worry about if you're Texas or Auburn in that sense. Texas A&M certainly trying to get a little bit of a last grasp at Ryan Williams. As you would expect, he is a 5-star wide receiver. Some even say the best 5-star or the best wide receiver in the country, regardless of classification, in which he'd moved from 2025 down to 2024. So Texas and Auburn right now are the 2 teams to look after the most. Texas will host him January 27th. Auburn will host him for the final visit on February 3rd. So 2 big-time visits coming up for Ryan Williams. I think a decision comes down to ultimately one of the 2 there. Texas will also host his high school quarterback, KJ Lacey, 2 times before the end of the month, with the last visit coming on the 27th weekend as well. So the 2 of them in Austin together, hopefully for, not the final time in their college football playing days as well. So we will see just by the end of, February 9th, what Ryan Williams will do, which isn't necessarily a hard deadline there, but that is looking like the time that we will start to hear exactly where he will end up.
This Auburn discussion reminds me of something I need to say about CJ Daniels, by the way, the wide receiver out of Liberty. Texas only brought in 2 guys last week for official visits, CJ Daniels and Jamari Caldwell. Auburn, where CJ Daniels was 2 days earlier, at the same time CJ Daniels was there, they brought in 3 other transfer wide receivers. Texas is definitely selling the point that, look, we're not trying to throw spaghetti up against the wall here and find a couple of receivers. We're targeting a select amount of wide receivers, and I am told that has resonated with CJ Daniels to a level. Now, what does it ultimately mean? We'll find out if he announces for the Longhorns or Auburn, or if someone new gets in the race over the last 48, 72 hours. But right now, I think Texas has reason to feel confident on CJ Daniels.
Okay, guys, we have a few more questions here. This one from Emanuel Roberts, going back to Quinn and his announcement. Quinn is really good, but do you think this may be a situation if something happens to Quinn and Arch gets the opportunity? Will Quinn keep his job like he did with Malik Murphy?
Are you asking me if Quinn Ewers is going to get Wally pipped by Arch Manning? Look, you don't wish injury on anybody ever, guys. And that's the only way I think that's going to happen or would happen. Do I think Arch is a unbelievable prospect and going to be a potentially unbelievable quarterback? Yes. But he's also not foolish, and he's clearly not living by the rules other people may try to live by, where he's got to play right away. His family and him, he just doesn't see it that way. He's going to be playing football for the next 20 years. That's how his attitude is. It's not about the next year. It's about the next 20, right? And what's best for him. So I think people trying to push Quinn aside or anything like that need to recognize that Quinn Ewers has 2 years of starting experience in Steve Sarkisian's offense. He's seen a lot of things, and hopefully that translates into an even better. He completed 70+% of his passes this year. Hopefully that continues into next year and it gets even higher. That's the hope.
Okay, guys, this next question, somebody we haven't talked about in a while. RW says, why is Austin Jordan falling down the depth chart? He's one of the most talented players in the defensive back room.
I think it's injury. Don't you agree, CJ?
Yeah, I know he wasn't necessarily healthy towards the end of the season there. That clearly plays a large role in your development if you're not on the field all too often. And so for the sense of Austin Jordan, that to me is why we haven't necessarily heard his name a lot. On top of a very talented defensive back class coming in, it's tough if you're not in that mix at 100% to rise up a depth chart there. So I'm sure we'll hear more toward the spring and in winter workouts, but he's got to get back to 100% first.
Well, and this is another thing I want to say, not only with Austin Jordan, but all the new DBs, they need reps. Quinn Ewers, with all these new receivers coming in, they need reps. Hopefully this spring and summer, Quinn Ewers is leading the team in reps, an untold amount, guys. That's what needs to happen. These, not only on offense, but also on defense, they're going to need an extra amount of reps this summer. Absolutely have to. So many new pieces, guys that you want to work in, like Austin Jordan, Jalen Gilbo, even adding a piece like Jelani McDonald, Andrew Makuba comes in. You want to see what he can do. And, oh, by the way, we're still waiting on Jahdae Barron to make his announcement. So all of this stuff happening just means there's more work to do. And thankfully, one of the things that Steve Sarkisian doesn't have to worry about right now is actually changing quarterbacks. That's a whole new ball of worms, or can of worms, excuse me. Mixing my metaphors here.
It's tough.
All right, Mark says, I hope Bama takes Mike Norvell. He can't develop players as shown by his need for the transfer portal. I will say he did take quite a bit last year, but they also lost 22 last year. So
I think that's a double-edged sword, because it's not like Alabama is going to be a spot that isn't attractive to the portal. You know, I know a lot of people point to Alabama and that program as being solely Nick Saban, but if you don't think about the facilities, the locker rooms, the stadiums, everything about Alabama as a program, it's still a desirable place to go play for, especially if you're coming from somewhere else in the portal in which you are looking for brighter pastures. So that's something that I think a lot of people are kind of discounting right now. Everything about Alabama football is up to the highest, par and stature of facilities, everything, stadium, atmosphere, fandom. Let's not even talk about Alabama fans and how crazy they've proven to be in terms of, talking to Feinbaum. There's whole clips of that on YouTube about the passion that they have. So it's a desirable place with or without Nick Saban.
Hey, I want to bring this up, guys. David Benda, the linebacker. CJ found this, and he's ready to go to work with Quinn Ewers, it looks like.
They're both back. Now they just need to get Jade in the boat.
Yep.
You know, that would be a complete the moment because Texas needs Jade Barron or wants Jade Barron to come back, no doubt.
Okay, we got a super chat from Shannon Hansen. Thank you, Shannon. And he says Coach O would be Sark putting his foot on the league in defensive line recruiting.
He really would, guys. I don't know how to tell you other than he was elite, and one of the most elite D-line recruiters I ever saw. You know, just never took no for an answer. Rarely lost the guy that he really wanted. Could recruit and develop the 3 stars as well as the 5 stars. Did it at Miami with Jimmy Johnson. Did it at USC with Pete Carroll. Did it for himself at LSU. He's done it all.
There you go. That's everywhere he's been. Syracuse, USC, Nicholls State, Miami, Arkansas, Ole Miss, New Orleans Saints, Tennessee, USC, and then, as you said, Bobby, LSU. So a lot of places.
Good. He's just a good coach, man. He is a good defensive line coach. One of the best. People really are attracted to exactly how hard he works and the passion he puts into the job. He may not have been an ideal head coach, but that doesn't mean he can't be a great defensive line coach. Is he available? Would he even be available? Is he tired of jogging on 30A and Destin down there somewhere? I don't know. But he would be one of my first calls if I'm Steve Sarkisian.
Okay, guys. Well, we started the broadcast with Quinn Ewers. We're going to finish it with Quinn Ewers. Sean's going to put y'all on the spot. Do you think Quinn will win the Heisman next season?
I would take the field like everybody else other than Quinn, but I think Quinn's a top 3 guy leading into it.
Has the best odds.
It's going to depend on who steps up at the wide receiver position. That's going to be a big part of it. Quinn's going to be good next year. I think his numbers will be much better than what we saw this year, especially in the touchdown department. But Heisman's kind of a different animal. He's going to have to take a really large step.
Yep. Without the security blankets of Jordan Whittington, Xavier Worthy, and Adonai Mitchell, and JT Sanders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Texas, by the way, still looking for a tight end in the portal. I confirmed that earlier today. This may not be right now. There may not be one that's going to graduate by midterm that they need to get in right now.
All right, y'all. Well, that's going to do it for this quick edition here of, breaking news on Texas football. We'll be back if anything else happens, of course. Bobby, I know you got some stuff cooking for later today here as well. So just be sure to tune in. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell. There's no better time to ring the bell than right now, obviously, with all the breaking news going on. So you're notified whenever we go live or post the video. And for Bobby Burton and CJ Vogel, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you next time.
Congrats, Quinn. Welcome back, bud.
Absolutely.